Yes, this is all part of the profession, but let's just be clear here. Jimmy Butler has not requested a trade out of Miami, but teams are poking around, especially because we're only 2 days from trade season opening up. So, Shams, what can we expect, especially when it comes to Jimmy Butler the next few months?
The Heat are open to listening to trade offers, but there's not that urgency in place right now, because you think about it, he is under contract this year, $49 million and a $52 million player option for next season. And that's why in all of this, there was the conversation about extension. No extension got done in the offseason. No extension yet this year. And the Heat don't have a level of urgency quite yet to go through with that, because he is under contract. And from Jimmy Butler's perspective, what other options are out there for him? And that's why, as I reported, it's been communicated in league circles, the Mavericks, the Rockets, the Suns, and the Warriors as potential teams that he would be open to. But there's not that urgency in place, as I keep reiterating. They've won 4 games in a row. They're in a very good stretch right now in the Eastern Conference. At the end of the day, it's going to be coming down to these conversations between the two sides.
So the temperature was pretty hot when it came to conversations, those little whispers, those little murmurs, but it seems like it's gone down a little bit. So
trade deadline's 2 months away.
That is true. So it's a slow roll here. But Perk, you've been adamant that the Heat need to move on from Jimmy. Where do you think he would actually fit best?
Well, I think all those places except for Houston, but I would like to add another spot, another team in that place. And right now you're looking at Nikola Jokic. He's having a historical season, having the best season of his career statistically wise. Why not the Denver Nuggets? Why not the Denver Nuggets? Like, why is the Denver Nuggets not one of Jimmy's options? Why not go play alongside Nikola Jokic?
Good thing that we have front office insider Bobby Marks here. Bobby, how would that work potentially? Jimmy Butler, Denver Nuggets? Can you crank up that machine?
Yeah, we can do it. Perk, you ask and we will deliver for you. I think certainly when you look at it from Denver's perspective, the big trade candidate would have to be Michael Porter Jr., right? Jamal Murray can't be traded. Aaron Gordon can't be traded. So when we have Porter Jr. going to certainly Miami here, and then of course Jimmy Butler going to Denver. Now, there's got to be some more pieces here. So this is kind of how we get a little bit more creative as far as contracts going out. We're going to add a player like Zeke Naji, and then we're going to add Dario Saric, and we're going to rope in Detroit here, certainly. And when you look at it, here is Detroit. We're just going to have a player sent out and a player like Bobby Clement, and we're going to have him go to Denver, for example. And then when you look at it, that trade works here. Certainly Detroit, because they've got cap space to absorb a contract. But when you look at it, and maybe we add some draft assets, but it's Porter and Jr. and Zeke Naji to Miami, Jimmy Butler to Denver, and certainly Dario Saric to Detroit. So that's something, you know, as far as getting Denver in the mix. Remember, Denver doesn't have a first-round pick to trade. They only have 1 second, so they're limited as far as assets to go out and make a Jimmy Butler-type trade.
You see that green box, big perk. Do you think that works? Do you like that?
I love it, to be honest with you, because we've been asking for Jokic to get help, a guy that's going to actually help, that's going to move the needle when it comes down to the Nuggets, and Jamal Murray hasn't been that guy. Now, is Jimmy Butler #1 option for a championship contender? Absolutely not. But can he be a #2 option, #3 option, playing alongside Jokic and Murray? Absolutely he can. And I just want to know, why is he not on the list? But that absolutely makes sense for both sides, because if you're Miami, now you're getting a 6'10" Michael Porter Jr., a guy that can stretch the floor, a guy that can play off the ball, a guy that still, I believe, has a very high ceiling that could potentially go in that Heat culture and do a lot more than he's allowed to do with the Denver Nuggets.
So there are some questions around the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler's future, but
NBA trade season is approaching, and the trade rumors are heating up, pun absolutely intended, with Jimmy Butler. But our Bill writer says it's, quote, complicated. That is an understatement. We have agent-reporter drama on social media. But let's hear from the man himself. Jimmy Butler asked about it. Let's take a listen.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, but obviously you're in a situation contractually. You have an opt-out after the year. There's a trade deadline within 2 months. Starting Sunday, players become eligible to be traded. Can you appreciate that? And do you understand that it might be this way now for a little while?
Fine with me. doesn't bother me not one bit, and I do appreciate it. I appreciate going out there and hooping. I appreciate being efficient, being effective, and helping my team win. I appreciate it all. I don't ever take playing basketball for anybody for granted.
And we appreciate bringing our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. I'm not going to say he totally rolled his eyes to that answer, but you can tell that he was enjoying that conversation. Bill, what are you hearing? What's the latest on the Jimmy Butler trade front?
Yeah, and you noted it, the reporting from ESPN that was then refuted aggressively and personally by Jimmy Butler's agent is it was pretty aggressive, and it raised some eyebrows. Here's what I'm being told from sources within the Heat organization and across the NBA, that there's obviously a sense in the NBA that Jimmy Butler can be acquired because of this contract dispute, because of the fact that he wanted an extension and Pat Riley and the Heat organization did not give it to him. But I am told that there have been no substantive conversations involving the Heat or anyone else in terms of trading Jimmy Butler. It sounds like there have been some calls, but there are calls on a regular basis in the NBA where people inquire. Nothing, I'm told from Heat sources, has led to serious conversations. They don't consider Jimmy Butler untradeable. They wouldn't hang up the phone if a team called and inquired. And I do want to note too that of the 4 teams that were mentioned as possible trade destinations, that was refuted by Jimmy Butler's agent, places Butler supposedly wanted to go: the Rockets, the Warriors, the Suns, and the Mavericks. I did talk to a source within that Suns organization who said they've heard that Butler could be available, but that they have not had any contact or communication with Jimmy Butler or his agent about Jimmy Butler expressing yet an interest in being in Phoenix.
I want to talk first about the Heat side of things. So Butler has that $52 million player option. How worried is this organization in terms of navigating the changes, the aprons to the CBA with that option looming?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I don't think they're particularly worried for a couple reasons. And it's the Heat way. Some would call it the Heat arrogance, depending who you're talking to in the NBA. But there's 2 things here. The first is the Miami Heat consider themselves, whether you and I do or don't, they consider themselves to be at a championship level. They think that if they can make it into the NBA playoffs without being a play-in team and have to deal with some of the uncertainty of playing games, that they are good enough to compete against teams like the Cavs and the Celtics. And so they don't feel an overwhelming need to trade Jimmy Butler right now because they think they're a pretty good basketball team. They've won 4 in a row. And you're right, there are these 2 aprons now that exist. The CBA is much more complicated and it's much more restrictive in what you can do in terms of trading players like this. But it's worth noting that they have in that front office a guy named Andy Ellisberg. I think his actual title is general manager, and he is a capologist. He is considered across the NBA one of the best experts at understanding the numbers and finding ways to navigate these rules. And so I'm told from people within the Heat organization that if, and it's an if, they decide to trade Jimmy Butler, they're not worried about having to navigate those difficulties. They think because of the personnel they have in their front office, they're uniquely positioned to be able to make the numbers work if they want to.
You mentioned some of the teams who could be interested. The Suns were one that you said. Obviously, all of that has been refuted, but Jimmy Butler wants to win. So where would be a good fit for him potentially? If, a lot of ifs in this whole conversation, Bill, but if he were to be traded?
Well, outside of the Miami Heat, who will tell you that the answer is the Miami Heat, the places that are good fits, and this is what the NBA wants, are the places that are really hard to make deals work. The Warriors would make sense for Jimmy Butler. I don't see how that would make sense for the Warriors, because to make those numbers work, the pieces they would have to send out are probably too much. I think the Suns are basically an impossibility because they're in that second apron. They'd have to move on from Bradley Beal. The Miami Heat don't want Bradley Beal, and he has a no-trade clause, so he'd have to want to go to Miami. The Mavericks, if you can make the pieces work. I think the spot that makes the most sense is the Houston Rockets. They have the flexibility. They have the young assets. They have players who could help Miami compete now, because that's part of what Miami says, I'm told, they want to do. They want to still compete if they move on from Jimmy Butler and have that be the focal point and not the assets being the main part of a trade. The problem becomes that the Rockets, ahead of schedule though they are, have said publicly and have said privately that they think that they are on an Oklahoma City Thunder-like track where they have a young core they think can grow into championship contenders. And I think it's very much an open question whether they would want to go get a Jimmy Butler. They might just believe that the nucleus they have is good enough, if not this year, in the years ahead to win. And so it's hard to see places right now that make a lot of sense for Jimmy Butler, for the Heat, and for a team that he could be traded to.
Hey, what's up guys? Jag from Jaggy Sports here. So breaking news, Dennis Schroeder has been dealt to the Golden State Warriors. Now, he was talked about, he was rumored about quite a few times. And Cam Johnson is the other Brooklyn net, along with Dorian Finney-Smith. He is also to be rumored to be out the hell of Brooklyn. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's rumored. So Dennis Schroeder on his way to Golden State for a second round pick, I believe, and D'Anthony Melton's expiring contract because he is out with an ACL injury. Also breaking news, Jared McCain off the 76ers has a lateral meniscus tear, I believe it is, and he is out indefinitely. I don't know if anyone has had that. It's very painful, and you do not want that. So he is out indefinitely. Bad luck for the 76ers because just yesterday, I think it was yesterday, Joel Embiid has suffered a right sinus fracture, and he is out. I don't know how long, but yeah, real bad news for the 76ers moving forward. I don't know what's going to happen with the 76ers, but all the best. They had good expectations. They had high expectations. I had high expectations for that team. However, like I said, bad luck. Now, moving forward to Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is 35. And this guy is unreal. Like, I don't know if anyone knows, but I think I might have mentioned it. I bet on Miami Heat the last couple of years to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I only was right one of the times, but I came close. I came really close. Why would I bet the Miami Heat, let's just say, over Boston Celtics? Because of one man, and his name is Jimmy Butler. Now, all these rumors are just rumors, right? Anything that is posted is just a rumor, not saying that, hey, it's awesome if they get this guy and yada yada yada. You know, it's just a rumor, it's just being talked about, that's it. That being said, Miami Heat is still in the driver's seat. Pat Riley is the owner, not the owner, is the president or general manager or whatever. He's 80. He doesn't want to deal with a real rebuild. So whatever he decides, he's going to make sure that you get win now players. You're not going to ask for draft picks, right? You're not going to ask for young draft picks that are 18, 19 years old. I mean, the guy's 80 years old, right? He doesn't want to go through another rebuild. So that being said, earlier in the week, if Jimmy Butler was to be traded, his top destinations, as it was revealed, and there was a fight amongst his agent and Shams, basically saying, oh, whatever I post is not true, whatever I post is true, yada yada yada. So the teams that were listed were the Golden State Warriors, Dallas Mavericks, Houston Rockets, and late coming into this was the Phoenix Suns. I just heard like a day or so ago, and it was the Milwaukee Bucks as well. So let's go over this. Milwaukee Bucks, they don't really have that much to give up. So if you're Pat Riley, you see what kind of deal that the Bucks have, and you're kind of like, why would I want second round picks? Why would I want first round picks in 2031, right? You know, I still hold the driver's seat for Jimmy Butler. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon with the Milwaukee Bucks, but you never know. So let's move on to the next one. Phoenix Suns. That's even harder because you have Bradley Beal's expiring contract, and if I'm Pat Riley, why would I want Bradley Beal? Because he's always injured. He's not reliable like Jimmy Butler. So moving on. Okay, let's move on to Houston Rockets. Houston Rockets, their owner or GM went on SiriusXM radio and basically said that, hey, we don't want Jimmy Butler because we feel we are good. They're top 4 team in the Western Conference, and to top it off, they believe that they are like the OKC Thunder. Not there yet, but they will get there. So move them aside. Now you're down to 2 teams. You got Dallas Mavericks, so let's start with him. You're not touching Kyrie Irving, you're not touching Luka Doncic. You could trade in Klay Thompson, you could trade in PJ Washington, you could trade in Daniel Gafford, or another individual, Derek Lively, like up and coming 100%, right? I get it. I would be intrigued by that, but however, you got to think to yourself, 1 minute left in the playoffs, right? 1 minute in the fourth quarter. That's when Jimmy Butler shines, playoff Jimmy. If you trade him away, who are you left with that could change the game? If you trade him away, do any of the players off the Dallas Mavericks that I listed would change the game? Unless you flip it for another situation, another team, that's another story, but I don't think that threads the needle. I don't think that moves the needle. So moving forward to Golden State Warriors. Originally it was the Golden State Warriors that was in the driver's seat, that was the top-notch place. However, now they just made a trade to acquire Dennis Schroeder, and it could still happen, but it's very unlikely because you just traded away a second-round pick and DeAnthony Melton's expiring contract. And you know, I'm pretty sure they are not willing to include Kuminga in a trade for Jimmy Butler. And give or take, I mean, you have to include Andrew Wiggins' contract, just because of the fact that the numbers make sense, and another Kevon Looney, whatever the deal is. But again, if you don't include Jonathan Kuminga's status, like, I believe he could possibly be an it factor in the playoffs, given the right team, especially with Coach Spo. This guy can coach anything. I think he could. However, it's on record that Golden State is unwilling to budge yet, but right now that is not the case. Now, Perk, like you saw in the video, basically said that Denver Nuggets could be why not the Denver Nuggets, right? If you take a look at that trade package that you just saw, a couple pieces here and there, but Miami Heat would get Michael Porter Jr. in return. That is a surprising deal, because the thing is, Michael Porter Jr. is very is a very good player. Out of anyone that I listed just now, I think Michael Porter Jr. is the best player out of the players that I just listed. So moving forward, do you think, and I'm asking you guys an opinion, I'm not giving my opinion, I'm just asking you guys my opinion. Is Denver Nuggets a tradable partner with the Miami Heat? If Miami Heat was to trade Jimmy Butler, would that trade make any sense? If you're a Miami Heat fan, chime in, and I want to hear your opinion. Would you go for this kind of deal? Would you go for a Michael Porter Jr. in return for Jimmy Butler? I know you have to throw in other pieces here and there, but that's what I'm saying to you, is would you go for this kind of deal? Like I said, I think it's the best if you were to trade Jimmy Butler, but it's in Pat Riley's hands. So leave a comment in the comment section. As always, Jag from Jaggy Sports.